stop what you're doing. Because if you haven't seen the Michael biopic yet, or if you have seen it and you're still trying to process everything, this video is exactly what you need right now. We're talking about a film that just blew past Bohemian Rhapsody to become the highest grossing music biopic of all time. Over $911 million globally. That's not a typo. $911 million. And yet, critics gave it a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. 39%. But audiences? A 97% audience score. One of the biggest critic versus audience splits in modern Hollywood history. So today we're diving deep. We're breaking down the film, the controversy, the performances, the box office insanity, what it gets right, what it gets wrong, and why Michael 2026 might be the most culturally important film of this decade, whether the critics like it or not. Let's go. So first, the basics, because some of you might be coming into this fresh. Michael is a 2026 biographical film directed by Antoine Fuqua, the guy who gave us Training Day, The Equalizer, and Southpaw. The screenplay is written by John Logan, whose credits include Gladiator, The Aviator, and The Last Samurai. So right away, we're not talking about some cheap cash grab. This has serious filmmaking pedigree behind it. The film was produced by Lionsgate Films alongside GK Films and Optimum Productions, and it was distributed internationally by Universal Pictures. Budget? Somewhere between $155 and $200 million. That's a massive bet on a single biopic. The film had its world premiere at the Berlin International Film Festival on April 10th, 2026, and then dropped in U.S. theaters on April 24th, 2026. And it absolutely detonated at the box office from day one. But let's talk about the most important thing first, the man carrying this entire movie on his shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, Jaafar Jackson. Now if that last name sounds familiar, it should. Jaafar is the son of Jermaine Jackson, which makes him Michael Jackson's actual nephew. And casting him in this role was either the most brilliant or most controversial decision in recent Hollywood history, depending on who you ask. Let me tell you, even the critics who hated this movie could not deny what Jaafar brings to the screen. The man didn't just play Michael Jackson. He became him. Think about what that means for a second. This is his acting debut. His debut. And he's carrying a $155 to $200 million biopic on his back. The pressure on this kid must have been absolutely insane. Not just the normal pressure of a major Hollywood film, but the weight of portraying someone who is literally a part of his own family. Someone whose legacy is both beloved and deeply complicated. And Jaafar delivers. The moonwalk sequences, the vocal mannerisms, the way he holds himself during performances, it is uncanny. There are moments in this film where you genuinely forget you're watching an actor. The physicality alone is a masterclass. Screen Rant's Liz Declan gave the film 9 out of 10 stars and called it a masterclass in what a biopic should be. And even harsh critics, like Richard Brody from The New Yorker, gave it a moderately positive write-up, acknowledging that even viewed as pure fiction about a fictitious character, the film has undeniable craft. The audience loved him. And honestly, rightfully so. But Jaafar doesn't carry this film alone. Let's talk about the incredible ensemble surrounding him. This cast is stacked. Like, legitimately stacked. Colman Domingo plays Joseph Jackson, Michael's father, and this casting is inspired. Colman Domingo is one of the most versatile actors working today. His Joe Jackson is menacing, complicated, and tragic all at once. The scenes of young Michael under his father's iron discipline are some of the most emotionally devastating in the film. Nia Long plays Katherine Jackson, the family's moral compass and the emotional heart of the early chapters. Long brings warmth and quiet strength to a role that could have been overlooked. Miles Teller, yes, Whiplash himself, plays John Branca, Michael's longtime attorney and business manager. It's a sharp, cerebral performance and honestly one of the film's hidden MVPs. Laura Harrier plays Suzanne de Passé, the Motown executive who helped shape the Jackson 5's early trajectory. Kaylin Dole Jones plays Bill Bray, Michael's bodyguard and one of his closest confidants. And for the Jackson 5 sequences, child actor Juliano Cruz-Valde plays young Michael, delivering a performance that is genuinely moving. Oh, and Mike Myers is in here too, in a role we won't fully spoil, but let's just say it's a very interesting piece of casting for the music industry storyline. Every single one of these performers elevates the material. This is what a well-assembled ensemble looks like. Now this is where it gets interesting, and where a lot of the critical controversy comes from. The film opens in 1966 with Joe Jackson pushing his 5 sons, the Jackson 5, into becoming a professional musical act. We see the extraordinary talent of young Michael almost immediately. The kid is a natural. But we also see the cost, the relentless rehearsals, the physical and emotional pressure, a childhood sacrificed on the altar of his father's ambition. The story follows Michael's journey from those steel mill town beginnings through the Jackson 5's rise on Motown, through the transformation into the solo artist who would redefine popular music globally. We see the birth of Off the Wall, the making of Thriller, the iconic performances, the business moves, the artistic obsessions. And here is where some critics pushed back hard. The film largely tells the triumphant story, the rise, the glory, the artistry. What it doesn't fully reckon with is the complexity of Michael Jackson's later life, the controversies, the allegations, the trial. Pitchfork called it bizarrely sanitized. The Atlantic Spencer Kornhaber wrote that the film does interesting work in the first act, but ultimately turns to total sanctification. And look, that's a legitimate criticism. Michael Jackson is one of the most debated public figures in American cultural history. To tell his story without engaging fully with its darkest chapters is, for many, a creative and ethical choice that undermines the film's claim to be a definitive biographical account. But here's the counterargument. The film says up front, right there in the promotional material, this is where his story begins. It focuses on his rise. It's intentionally a story of discovery, of artistic ambition, of a childhood prodigy becoming the biggest entertainer on the planet. And the sequel is already in development. So maybe the criticism about sanitization will look different once part 2 arrives and is forced to confront the full picture. The narrative structure is linear, clean, and emotionally engaging. It's not challenging filmmaking, but it is effective filmmaking. Okay, let's talk money, because this is where things get genuinely historic. Michael debuted in U.S. theaters on April 24th, 2026, and it has been on an absolute tear ever since. The film grossed over $911 million globally, surpassing Bohemian Rhapsody to become the highest-grossing music biopic of all time. Let that sink in. Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen biopic that was everywhere in 2018. Dethroned. It's one of the highest-grossing films of 2026 overall, sitting behind only the Super Mario Galaxy movie in terms of total worldwide earnings this year. Not just highest-grossing biopic, one of the highest-grossing films, period. Now consider the context. This film was made on a budget of $155 to $200 million. That's a major investment. Studios don't make bets like that unless they believe they have something special. And Lionsgate clearly knew what they had. Back in November 2025, the teaser trailer alone broke records, racking up over 116 million views within a single day. The internet absolutely lost its mind. Michael Jackson's fan base, already keeping him at over 60 million monthly listeners on Spotify nearly 17 years after his death, mobilized like a force of nature. The opening weekend domestic projections range from $52 million to $90 million, and the film delivered. Now the movie has also moved to PVOD, premium video on demand, and it's holding the #1 spot in the United States on digital platforms. So even as it continues its theatrical run, it's dominating at home too. The $1 billion milestone is within reach, and it's coming. This is what happens when you combine a universally beloved musical legacy, a deeply curious public, and a cast and crew that can actually deliver the goods. Let's address the elephant in the room. 39% from critics, 97% from audiences. That is a 58-point gap. One of the largest critic audience splits of the entire year on Rotten Tomatoes. So what is going on here? On the critics' side, they're not wrong in their specific complaints. The film does shy away from the most controversial chapters of Michael Jackson's life. It is, in many ways, a celebration rather than an examination. If you're a film critic whose job is to evaluate cinema as an art form, a biopic that plays it safe and avoids moral complexity is a legitimate critical failure. But here's the thing. Audiences aren't watching this movie to be challenged. They're watching it to experience Michael Jackson, to feel the music, to relive the moments, to see someone they grew up idolizing portrayed with care and reverence and extraordinary performance. And on that level, the film absolutely delivers. This isn't a unique tension. We saw it with Elvis 2022, with Bohemian Rhapsody 2018, with Rocketman 2019. The music biopic genre has always lived at the intersection of artistic ambition and fan service. The films that lean fully into fan service get criticized by critics and loved by audiences. The films that lean into artistic deconstruction get praised by critics and sometimes struggle commercially. Michael made a choice. It chose its audience over its critics. And commercially, that choice has paid off to the tune of over $911 million. You can debate whether that was the right artistic choice, but you cannot debate whether it worked. One thing that doesn't get enough credit in the discourse around this film is Antoine Fuqua's direction. Fuqua is not a subtle filmmaker. He works in big, bold, emotionally direct strokes. Training Day is a pressure cooker of tension. The Equalizer is kinetic and visceral. And Michael, in its best moments, is genuinely cinematic. The concert recreation sequences are stunning. The visual language Fuqua and cinematographer Dion Beebe used to capture the Jackson 5 era versus the Thriller era versus the later solo years is sophisticated and deliberate. You feel the passage of time not just through the story, but through the look of the film itself. And the editing team, John Ottman, Harry Yoon, Conrad Buffour, and Tom Cross, gives the film a rhythm that mirrors its subject. The film has momentum. Even in its slower emotional passages, there's a drive forward that keeps you engaged. At 127 minutes, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It knows what it wants to do, and it does it efficiently. For a film working with this much real-world material, that restraint, knowing what to leave out, is its own kind of filmmaking skill. Now look, I said I'd be honest with you, so let me be honest. The film's decision to largely sidestep the controversies surrounding Michael Jackson is something every viewer needs to sit with. These aren't minor footnotes. The allegations, the trials, the documentaries, the cultural reckoning that has happened since leaving Neverland in 2019. These are conversations that a large portion of the American public has been actively having. A film that calls itself a biographical account of Michael Jackson and chooses not to engage with these chapters is making a statement. Whether you agree with that statement, whether you believe the film's framing honors the man or obscures the full picture, is deeply personal. The Jackson estate was involved in the production. That context matters. It shapes what the film is willing to say and what it chooses to protect. That doesn't make the movie bad. But it does mean that if you come to Michael expecting the full, unvarnished, complicated portrait of a complex human being, you may leave wanting more. What you will get is a spectacular celebration of extraordinary artistry. A film that makes you feel the magic of Michael Jackson at his creative peak. And a performance from Jaafar Jackson that is, by any measure, remarkable. Know what you're getting. Go in with clear eyes. And then let yourself enjoy the show, because when the music hits, it hits. So here's the bottom line. Michael 2026 is a historic box office achievement. It is a star-making performance by Jaafar Jackson. It is a visually stunning, emotionally engaging tribute to one of the greatest entertainers who ever lived. And it is a deeply imperfect, but deeply watchable film that makes a deliberate choice to celebrate rather than interrogate. Whether that's a flaw or a feature depends on what you're looking for. What's undeniable is this. Over $911 million in tickets sold, a 97% audience score, and a $1 billion milestone coming into view. The public has voted, emphatically. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. Form your own opinion. There's a lot to love, and there is a lot to think about. That combination is actually more interesting than most movies give you. If you have seen it, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Were you team critic or team audience? What did Jaafar's performance do for you? And how do you feel about the film's choice to focus on the rise and leave the rest for a potential sequel? I want to hear from you. If you found this breakdown useful, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. Subscribe if you want more deep dives like this. And share this video with someone who's been on the fence about seeing Michael. The King of Pop deserves your attention. And so does this conversation. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.